Reddit. I asked my date if she liked the Smashing Pumpkins. She replied with, "I've never tried it, but I've been cow tipping before. When have you ever went along with something to avoid a person's embarrassment? I once had tea with my friend's great grandmother who was 97, blind, and mind was going. About halfway through the conversation she started ranting about how blacks took over her town and how much she hates N. We probably talked for another 30 minutes. She had such an interesting life and I enjoy the perspective of older people. She then went on to tell me how one of her friends was stabbed by a black man for $20 and that I would be wise to stay away from them. I politely obliged. She never gets many visitors besides my friend once every couple months. My friend was chuckling half the time and nervously looking at me when she said N. Because, I'm black. Many years ago when the concept of computer viruses was just beginning to make news, my non-technical boss told his entire staff in a meeting to be careful and stay away from the computers if you have a cold or are not feeling well. Nobody said anything, but there was a lot of stifled snickering. My friend had recently started dating a new guy. When she was describing him to us she mentioned he was Filipino. A few months later we saw her again and one of my friends asked her how Phil was doing. Phil who, she asked. That new boyfriend of yours, Filipino? We all went along with it. It was glorious. The woman down the road has been calling me Richard for 25 years. That's not my name. It's way past the point of correcting her, so I just go along with it. Way to be a dong equals P. I was in bed with a girl who ended up being my high school sweetheart, engaging in a pretty heavy makeout session when she finally mustered up the courage to let her hands wander for the first time. She was an innocent girl who had never been in a relationship and I was a stoner kid who played hacky sack any chance I could, which involved me always having a hacky sack in my pocket ready to go. Her wandering hand finds my hacky sack and she begins to work it like a champ. Without her knowledge, I moved to her opposite side while secretly removing the hacky sack and shifting my unit to the spot where the hacky sack was in my pants. Embarrassing crisis averted. Mediocre hand job received. She knew. She just wanted to know if you used beads or sand. I was telling a coworker about how much I enjoyed watching fencing at the Olympics and was thinking about joining the fencing club in my city to try it out. They responded asking, "You mean the wooden ones or the chain link ones?" I didn't realize that was a sport. I just responded, "Yeah, I think it's one of the new ones they added recently, like trampolining." I have a few friends that tell me the same amazing story at least 2 or 3 times, and every time I sound just as interested. Sometimes I'm the one to tell them the story they are telling me and I just listen to see how much they've exaggerated it. Quite fun really. The other week watching the Avengers movie with some girls, it gets to the bit where Captain America gives the $10 to Nick Fury after losing a bet and one of the girls asks why this is. Before I could tell her it was because of a bet the two of them made earlier in the film, one of the other girls turns around and says it's because Nick Fury is black and Captain America is from the past. Oh my sweet Jesus, that's perfect. My friend's grandfather was this really serious, old-fashioned guy who would have died if he knew about this. One time she and I were on the front porch laying on the ground drawing. From the door of the porch, we were hidden from view by some furniture. Her grandfather walked out onto the porch, ripped the longest and loudest series of farts I have heard in my life, sighed, and went back inside. She and I just stared at each other in amazement before we both burst out laughing. I did this in school once. My school was set up so that there was a computer lab in the basement. I walked into it, turned around and faced the printer, farted, and walked out. I didn't even turn around to see if anyone was in the room. When I walked out, I heard laughter bursting out. It was embarrassing. My friend asked me if I'm a fan of cake, and I went into a rant on red velvet and ice cream cake. He didn't say anything, just snickered. Someone else had to fill me in. So I worked at JCPenney during the holiday season and decided to do some shopping on my break. I was looking to get my dad some new slippers but didn't know his shoe size. I mentioned this to a chick I worked with and she said, "Why don't you call and ask your mom?" I forget exactly what I said, probably something like, "Yeah, I should do that." My mom passed away about 5 months before this, but I didn't want to make it awkward. Being younger than average when your parent dies creates years of incidents like this. I mentioned to a co-worker that I had studied Japanese in college for a few years. She then started telling me all about what she knew about Japan. Its capital is Beijing. You say ni hao when you meet people. Then she asked me if I ever thought about driving there and how long it would take. From Ohio, I politely replied I don't like long car trips and prefer to fly. At least she didn't say the capital was Hong Kong. I was giving a group presentation on dinoflagellates or some crap for a marine biology class several years ago, and the guy who insisted on doing most of the talking, but hardly any of the actual research, mentioned something about red tides occurring in Hong Kong, Japan. My face just sort of went blank. My grandmother is not a well-educated woman. I believe she quit school in the 7th or 8th grade. She is incredibly sharp, but never had the chance to learn things like advanced math or world history. She was also the person who helped me with things like homework as a kid. She would try so hard to get the right answers, and usually the ones she would come up with were wrong. But she would be so proud that she had done it. I would write them down anyways, and then before class change them to the correct answer. My friend thought Nelson Mandela was a wrestler, went with it and convinced her that the apartheid was another wrestler and that Nelson Mandela defeated the apartheid in the wrestling match of the century. That was his half-brother, half Nelson Mandela. I was friends with a girl who confused Pink Floyd with Pink. I told her I was kinda into Pink Floyd and she responded, oh I love her hair. It's so cute. I just pretended that's exactly what I was talking about. I had an English teacher who didn't know what a booty call is. She overheard some girls talking about making a booty call in class and assumed they were talking about shoes, boots or booties. She accidentally hijacked the conversation because of it. I was stuck in a car, listening to music with my brother's, now ex-girlfriend, and I kept being blown away at how little she knew about music, and still insisted on trash talking every station I was tuning to. Her. What is this we're listening to? Me. Do you even know who the Rolling Stones are? Her. Duh. They're a t-shirt company. Me. Blank stir. What? Her. You know, they make all those shirts with the pictures of big mouths with the tongue sticking out. Well, you can't always get what you want. I know where she's coming from. When I was really little, my cousin told me that he loved the Smashing Pumpkins. I started to cry and think, how could someone like those mean guys that came to my backyard took the pumpkins I was growing and smashed them on the road? It's still a touchy subject. I wonder what's more of a douchey act, waking up to your cows being tipped over or pumpkins being curve stomped. I was a freshman in college and I asked this guy to hand me the thesaurus so I can finish my paper and head to lunch. On my bookshelf there was literally a few ye-books, a dictionary, a thesaurus, and miscellaneous trinkets. This guy stares at the bookshelf confused. Then, I crap you not, this guy grabs a freaking teeny tiny plush dinosaur, thinking that's what I meant. Honestly, that was a close second. I actually have to do this pretty frequently at my job. I've worked at several zoos and aquariums. Of course, educating visitors is part of the job. It's not unusual for guests to draw hilariously inaccurate conclusions about the animals after observing it for less than 10 seconds. I don't go along with it, but I'm very good at pretending it wasn't the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Just 2 common examples. People assume anything that's sleeping is dead. Instead of reading signs or asking staff, guests make up names for animals they've never seen before. Had a guy call a rose-eared spoonbill the pink paddlebill bird. I had a lot of friends. Dated a lot of girls in JR high school. I was lucky that way. I like to write notes to my girlfriends. We would pass them all day long at school between classes. Since my first girlfriend in 5th grade on through high school, I would call the girls sweetheart. Yup, their hearts were always working out. Apparently, I didn't realize until I dated a girl long term and she told me I needed to spell check my notes. I felt pretty embarrassed, but out of curiosity I mentioned my misspelling to a few of my exes and they all laughed and said they noticed, but they didn't want me to feel badly. Plus, they loved the notes. That girl who finally set me straight. We're 11 years happily married, have 2 great kids, she's my one and only sweetheart. My boyfriend used to end his texts goodnight sweaty and was a little embarrassed when I called him out on it and told him it spelled sweetie, not sweetie, and especially not sweaty. I'm taking your story as a good omen. I had a bad week, so I'm going to cleanse for a bit and become the butt of a joke. Me going through my roommate's room. It was really a hallway converted to a bedroom to get to my room in the attic after defending my thesis. Roommate: hey, how was your presentation? Watching TV with a friend of hers. Me: it went well. It went a lot smoother than I thought. Man, I'm tired and hungry though. I haven't eaten anything all day. Roommate: well, do you want some Swedish fish? Me: no, I'm not into seafood except maybe tuna. Roommate and her friend gives me a funny look. I went round my friend's house when his mother answered the door. She told me he was in his room. I walked upstairs, opened his door, and lo and behold, he was fricking the crap out of a teddy bear. I just said, hey man, what's up? I'm just going to the bathroom real quick. Walked out the door. I gave him a few minutes so he could clean up. Till this day I still don't know where that teddy came from or where it went. Imagine if Toy Story were true. Despite all my rage, I am still tipping cows in a cage. My buddies GF asked who Mike Tyson and Michael Phelps were. He told her, peace stars. He immediately told us, about 2 months ago, and now we routinely make jokes, so it appears that Tyson Phelps being famous in P is just common knowledge. To top it off, I inform new members to the group beforehand, and whenever she goes with us to the bar I usually get the bartender to make a similar reference. So there's that. This is more like setting her up for future embarrassment. Me: so do you like Led Zeppelin? Her: I've never heard of her. I played it cool. My friends who were over drinking and listening to Zepp with me as this exchange happened could not. I saw a cover band called Led Zeppelin composed entirely of lesbians at Download Festival one year. Close enough. I have a friend who, for the longest time, believed that a cat burglar actually stole cats. We went along with it because we thought he was joking. My parents were watching Crash in our living room, the 2004 film, not the 1996 one. During the carjacking scene near the start of the movie, my dad says to my mom, hey, that's ludicrous. My mom replied, I know, it's crazy. First date with a girl and we started to discuss TV. I told her I loved Dexter, to which she replied that she loved it too. I went on to tell her that I didn't have Showtime anymore, so we'll miss the beginning of the 6th season, and she replied, oh don't worry, it comes on Cartoon Network occasionally. This would make me like her more. My missus couldn't find any portrait picture frames because they were all landscape ones in the shop. Don't worry, she is hot. Oh goddammit, I've done that. I'm a big soccer fan, and a few summers back, I was going to see Real Madrid play a friendly in Philly. I told one of my co-workers, I'll be gone for a few days. I'm going to see Real Madrid play in Philadelphia. That's cool. I don't really follow music. And a totally different co-worker, when told the same thing, responded with, Madrid? Like, the country? I play video games too. I'm such a gamer. Me: oh yeah? Do you like role-playing games? I don't see what my sex life has to do with this. Me: sometimes I get scared that people take me seriously when I pretend to be oblivious and make jokes like that. Why didn't you just tell her it's a band? Who the frick would be embarrassed for not knowing a band name? I mean, Smashing Pumpkins is pretty famous, but I seriously don't understand why you didn't say, haha, no silly, they're a band. I'll play one of their CDs for you at my place sometime, or something to that effect. My ex-wife once told one of my friends that America was God's chosen country because of MT Rushmore. If we weren't, then why did the pictures of 4 of our greatest presidents just appear in the rock? I couldn't even come up with an answer to that. I was shocked into silence. Cow tipping? That doesn't exist. Cows sleep laying down and kind of nap awake, standing up on occasion. But you can't tip a cow. It is a joke played on city people that has just blown way out of proportion, like snipe hunting. Cows do sleep standing up. However, cow sleep and human sleep ain't the same. Cows never really go into deep. I can sneak up on the dang cow now sleep. You can try and tip a cow, but what ends up happening is you really pee it off. So it either walks away or charges you. Sneaking up on one is maybe possible, but by the time you go and push it, it's awake. Once, this guy I went on a date with asked if I liked Smashing Pumpkins. To avoid embarrassing him by pointing out his taste in music was bad different from mine, I changed the subject and talked about cow tipping. Phew. Good, because he probably would have curve stomped you. My friend Aaron and I used to work together when we were 19 or so for an accounting business. During certain parts of the year it would usually be only him and I and maybe a temp. My friend is male, but he's short and has a very soft voice as well as shaggy hair. We had a woman come in as a temp for a few weeks, and she just assumed that he was a girl. I don't know if she was half blind or what, but Aaron was too embarrassed to say anything. He just let this lady refer to him as she for about 3 weeks. Story time. Not necessarily anyone's embarrassment but still a little derpy story. My girlfriend recently got ammonia hydroxide in her eye from the lab she works at. Spent 9 hours, mostly waiting, in the for an ophthalmologist to come in, say that she was fine and she'd get another checkup in a week. Fast forward a week and I walk with her to her ophthalmologist appointment. As some side info, I had 4 eye infections in a row in high school over a 3-4 month period. During that time I was given a small armada of medications. One of the constant meds that I had was steroids, to reduce the swelling in my eye due to the clogged pores that I had under my eyelid. Steroid drops make your eye feel amazing if you have any sort of swelling in your eye. Also, back to the current time, I'm a larger semi-muscular kid in college. Back to my GF's ophthalmologist. He starts talking about medications to give her to prevent infection as well as make her damaged eye not hurt so bad. So the ophthalmologist says I'm gonna give you some general antibiotics and steroids. To which I replied, those steroids are amazing, you'll feel great. And the ophthalmologist gives me the "you're dumb fuck" stare and says these steroids won't do anything for your physique. Before I could say anything he left for his next patient. I was set up on a blind date with a guy who asked me which band I thought was the best of all time. I was still thinking about my answer when he said, because you'll never get it, the best band of all time is Ace of Base. I was still deciding whether to laugh until I peed my pants or run away when he started defending his answer. The evening did not last long. One day I was waiting tables and a bunch of the servers were hanging out after our shift, and we were talking about the Hall & Oates song that had just played in the background. We were all waxing nostalgic when one of the other servers walked in on the conversation, heard us talking about the duo and remarked, "I didn't know you guys worked on a farm. It's Hall & Oates. It's just one guy." I started singing Bohemian Rhapsody to my friend, and he says, "Oh my god, I love Rihanna." I couldn't help but want to fassap him at that one. You should have embarrassed him. You should have embarrassed him hard, with your fist. I was out with a girl who was the oldest of 7 girls in her family, but for some reason I thought she'd get a football reference. America, yeah. So our plans for the evening wound up falling through at the last minute, so I told her we were calling an audible. We wind up seeing a free jazz concert, so it was a lot of fun, but when I took her home and she was telling her family about it, she was really proud of her new word she learned and made sure to say multiple times. We called an audible. I didn't have the heart. TL. DR. Don't get pink carpet. Back in high school I had this friend that was very proud to be Puerto Rican. He always went around talking about his heritage and wanted everyone to know. His best friend once said, "Dude, you're hermaphrodite" towards him very loudly in class. This girl who is just so vapid looks at the both of them completely confused and says, "But Ryan, I thought you were Puerto Rican." Years ago, my family was discussing global warming. We asked our grandpa, who was 83 at the time, for his thoughts. His response was spectacular. "Well, we wouldn't have so many holes in the ozone layer if we would stop shooting so many rocket ships up there." We all looked at each other for a moment, laughed a little bit, silently agreed there was no need to explain the finer points of science to an old man, and just said, "Yeah, that's true." He has since passed away, but we still laugh about that discussion to this day. Part of me still thinks he was trolling us. He was dang witty, even to his final days. When my father passed away I got his wedding band. I was 17 and a female, so his wedding band was a tad bit too big for my fingers. So I wear it on a gold chain. The wedding band is gold. Even people that I have explained the significance to before still ask me if they're from the Lord of the Rings. One person went as far as to grab like one of the characters and start quoting the movie. I smacked him and said he couldn't handle the power of this ring and walked away. Totally Bilbo'd the crap out of a potential Batman situation. Nice work. I do tech support at my work, and one day this girl must not have eaten a proper breakfast or something. She said her web browser was broken because it wouldn't load a complete page. I went to her workstation and immediately realized that she just wasn't using the scroll bar. People in her area saw this and started making fun of her. So I said, whoa, looks like you have a serious problem here, and went into command prompt and pinged 127.0.0.1 while everyone watched, and then told her machine just needed to send some data packets and should be fine now. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.